welcome to my channel. My name is Win, and in today's video I have some more Cushing content for you. Today I'm going to be discussing what I've called a questionable Cushing. And today's questionable Cushing comes in the form of corruption from 1968. First of all, a few announcements, if you will. If you are a regular here on my channel, first of all, thank you for sticking around. I am really grateful for to anybody that engages with my content in any shape or form. I really do appreciate it. Unfortunately, I'm unable to film with my dad today. I try and film my videos on either a Friday or a Saturday. My dad can't really do Fridays because he has D&D, and then today he just had a very busy day at work, so he wasn't able to do it. I'm not going to I'm not going to say for definite that it will definitely be up next week, because I'm just not sure at the moment, but it will be up eventually. And the video that I'm talking about is the part 2 to the discussion that I had with my dad on Cushing versus Lee. So thank you so much for your patience, and apologies if that's what you're waiting for. It will come eventually. I've also decided, because I've finished with my uni stuff for the moment until September, I'm going to have a go at captioning all of my videos. I ordinarily rely on the automated captions to pick up what I'm saying. I know of one friend, let's call her, she'll know who she is, but I don't wish to declare her identity to you, who is deaf and needs the captions in order to watch my videos, otherwise she just has to read my lips. And I don't want there to be any accessibility issues. I want everybody, although I know that I don't have a massive audience, I do want people to be able to enjoy my videos, even if they can't hear what I'm saying. I do think that definitely all YouTube videos, all films, TV series, etc. should just be captioned as a standard, because if you can hear, then you can still watch a film with captions. I don't see why that's such an issue, but I'm gonna have a go, see what I can get sorted. But yeah, bear with me, I will let you know when that's all sorted. And yes, the third thing I want to say just before I get into this video, apologies for a little bit of a waffly start, is that my current plan at the moment is to do 2 videos on my regular Cushing content, and then a non-Cushing video. So yeah, I do have a couple of things I planned coming up, and hopefully I will be able to do that video with my dad very soon. Okay, so on to the video, the main topic of this video. As I have said before across my videos on this channel, but I'm just going to, I am aware that I've said this before, but I'm just going to reiterate for those that have forgotten, or indeed those that are new to my channel. I don't believe that Cushing ever gave a bad performance, but that's not to say that he was not in some questionable films. I admittedly have seen few questionable films. There are a couple that I know that he's in that I've not sought out simply because he's not in them that much. There are certain films that I will watch for actors that are in it, but they do have to have quite a substantial role in it, and it still has to be a good film. I think it's different now. I have definitely spoken in my other videos, so if you've not seen them, please have a look if you'd like to, about the fact that the nature of film and the film industry is changed dramatically. You can watch a Hammer film directed by Terence Fisher and know it's going to be brilliant. You can watch something like The Island of Terror, which I discussed in my first video here on YouTube, that although it's very camp, quite kitsch, very 70s sci-fi, which personally I love, although the special effects are interesting, it's a really good film because Terence Fisher directed it, and of course the cast are brilliant too. And I don't know, I'm sure I ranted about capitalism a little bit before, and a lot of what we see within the film industry today is unfortunately driven by money making. And it's a shame, but it's the truth. I'm glad that the film, well, that's the thing. I think the film that I'm going to be talking about today, unfortunately, was about making money. So I believe it's 1968. So just moving into the mainly 70s era of far more sexy films. Anyone that loves and knows these films well will know that Britain was way behind America in terms of censorship. So things are really strict. Plenty of films were cut significantly, had to have additional directors drafted in to finish them. Something like Day of the Triffids was cut. I believe Day of the Triffids was one of them. But it's just the first film I can think of off the top of my head. Was cut so much that they had to then draft in Freddie Francis, who is brilliant. Second only to Terence Fisher, I would say. And he filmed like an entire little subplot, and I like it. It's random and maybe doesn't fit with the rest of the film so much, but so much had been cut that that's what they needed to do. I will say that, I would say that this probably goes without saying, but if you can get your hands on the final extended cut of any of the films that I talk about on this channel, please do, because it's not so much an issue of plot holes. I'm very much a believer in the fact that if you're going to watch the Lord of the Rings trilogy, you have to watch the extended versions because there are plot holes, there are gaps in the story if you don't watch the extended footage. But with the films that I'm talking about, the plot hole thing isn't an issue. Any gaps within the narrative are generally filled back in after things have been cut. Maybe one exception I can think of would be the Brides of Dracula, which has I think it's either the Brides of Dracula or possibly the Vampire Lovers. There's this shady figure that hangs around. It's not really explained. His presence is not really explained at all, and people have suggested that was perhaps a little subplot that wasn't really explored because of finances, or most likely censorship. Speaking of the Vampire Lovers, I believe that was 1971. That's a film that's part of the Frankenstein trilogy and is known for being quite over-sexualised. And I agree with, I believe it was Jonathan Rigby that spoke, among other film experts and historians, about the fact that The Vampire Lovers is unfortunately, I love it. I do love it, but I agree that first and foremost it is a bit of an exploitation film. There are certain shots and certain content that's thrown in there to appeal to a certain kind of audience, American audiences in particular, who, I'm not trying to make generalisations. I'm not saying that Americans prefer sexy films. That that. It's silly to make that kind of... I don't know the statistics. I don't know. And, you know, some people like sexy films, and that's fine. As long as you're not hurting anyone, it's fine. But yeah, it's annoying, I think, at times, observing that transition from kind of milder, more theatre inspired, very rich sets, quite slow paced, two people like dialogue scenes, into more out there interesting films with slightly more revealing costumes, sex scenes, or at least suggested sex scenes. I mean, you see, the reason that this film that I'm talking about today, Corruption, is so difficult, I think, to talk about as a pretty diehard Cushing fan, is because he was such a lovely guy and Corruption forced him to portray a role that was so unlike all of the work that he'd done before. He's known for playing kind of doctors and very scholarly academic types, because I suppose that's the kind of person that he carries a lot of authority. He looks like somebody, he sounds like somebody that knows his onions. And Corruption is interesting because, so I didn't watch all of it. I didn't want to watch all of it. I admire you if you can sit through the whole thing, but I realised it was probably important for me to at least watch some of it, just to get a little bit of background. It was definitely a film that I knew I would never watch the whole of, if any of it, just because I know the background of the thing, and I know that Cushing wasn't like the character that he portrays at all. Of course not. Corruption is something that struck me from the beginning of the film, is that it is probably the film, one of the only films that Cushing did with extended snogging scenes. He spends a lot of time telling this, he plays like a renowned plastic surgeon, of course, doctor again, who's married this much younger woman. Doesn't have to be alarm bells, feels a bit alarm belly in this situation. He spends quite a large chunk of the beginning of the film telling this much younger woman how much he loves her, which in itself is not bad, but it's just the fact that she's much younger and their relationship struggles when, and yes, there are going to be spoilers in this video, I apologise, their relationship struggles when she's in an accident that affects her looks. And, you know, Cushing either, for the most part, played villains who weren't that fussed about relationships, or if they did have them, there would be some kind of exploitative element there. So of course I'm thinking of The Curse of Frankenstein, in which he has a relationship with his maid, Justine, who conceives his child, and he insists that it's not his, and gets his monster to kill her. And then the other film that I was thinking of is Frankenstein Must Be Destroyed, which featured... See, that is one film that I wish was readily available in the UK in the cut format. It contains a scene of... I'm going to be careful how I word this. Unwanted sex. it is a scene that was added, I believe, after the bulk of filming, editing, etc. had been done. So I'm pretty sure it was added kind of post-production. If I am indeed understanding that term correctly, apologies, I'm not a technical film expert. And it was added purely because of the pressure that was being put on Hammer by the studios that were funding the film. I believe, I could be wrong, I believe that Must Be Destroyed was released in the 70s, if not the late 60s. And that's important because it's at that time that Hammer was starting to lose money and they needed to rely on these bigger companies to fund their projects. Of course, the fate of Hammer is upsetting because if you're a fan, you know that ultimately the studio went bankrupt. And if you are a modern film watcher or somebody that doesn't know Hammer very well, and when I say modern film watcher, I mean I watch modern films, but I mean somebody who mostly watches modern films, you might not be aware of the fact that there is a Hammer film company that exists now, but it is Hammer in name only. It has no relation to the old studio at all, and I don't know if I've seen any of their films. I think they do possibly own some of the original Hammer's films, but I'm not entirely sure, to be perfectly honest. I know they were involved in the Woman in Black film with Daniel Radcliffe, which I've not seen. Definitely the sequel, the Angel of Death one or whatever, again, not seen it. I think it's likely they were involved in the first one as well, but I'm not sure, not seen either of them. But yeah, I don't know much about the studio as it exists today. When I say studio, film company. But yes, it was a scene, that particular scene in Frankenstein Must Be Destroyed, that the director, Terence Fisher, didn't want to do. Cushing didn't want to do it. The actress, Veronica Carlson, also didn't want to do it. But they were being pressured so heavily by the studio. I mean, I suppose it's easy to say, well, as the leading man, why didn't Cushing just say, no, I'm not doing it? But, you know, I've never been pressured by a film studio. I've never been pressured by somebody that is paying me my salary into doing something. And I will link an article below that talks about it, which says that you can imagine Cushing basically apologising, or no, I think it might be for corruption, possibly this article as well, that you can imagine him just apologising through the entire shoot just because he really was a gentleman. He was often known as the gentleman of horror, in contrast to the really cold villains that he was so brilliant at portraying. And corruption is one of those. It's believable, disturbingly believable. As I said, it's this plastic surgeon. He's married to a much younger model, and she is involved in an accident where, so he goes to this really kind of sleazy, sexy, hippie kind of, not that I have anything against hippies, but I think you know the kind of party I'm talking about. It's quite kitsch, 70s. It's 68, I think, but you know, it's getting to that point where we get the bad hairdos and the interesting clashing colours. He goes to this party with his wife, and wait, is it wife or possibly fiance? I can't even. Couple. Okay, they go together to this party. He's feeling uncomfortable, to say the least, and he is basically the most well-dressed person there. He's just come from work, and his the model lady, his love, is posing at the party for a photographer. And there reaches a point where, I mean, you can see the look in Cushing's face, he's getting increasingly uncomfortable by the poses that this photographer is asking this woman to do. And eventually he asks her to take her top off, and Cushing doesn't like this, rightly so. He ends up having a bit of a tussle with the man with the camera, and they knock a heat studio lamp thing. It lands on her face. They manage to save her sight, but Cushing is more bothered about her face. And she does have quite a large scar on it. I wouldn't say it's that bad, but I don't know. I realise I probably can't talk as someone that doesn't have a massive scar on their face. And she's very upset. She doesn't think she's ever going to be able to work again, and insists that he have a go as a plastic surgeon. Speaking of him being a surgeon and those scenes, they are just they're very sort of dramatic, very much focusing in on all the characters like sweating and being really focused and controlled on what they're doing. And one thing that made me laugh was that whenever somebody is passed an instrument, it's like slapped into their hands. Like, it's, the point is, realistically that wouldn't happen every time. Even if you're like in a rush, it's not going to be like it just I'm not a doctor, I don't work in medicine, I'm not trained in that field at all, but I think it's safe to say that operating theatres are generally not that dramatic. He tries several times to do stuff with lasers to restore her face to its former glory. He eventually realises that if he takes I can't remember, I'm going to have to put it up on the screen, sorry. Oh no, actually I think it's the pituitary gland. He takes a gland from, I believe, like a rat to start with, and does an experiment. It works in the way that he wants it to. It revitalises the area that he's experimenting on. And he goes down to the morgue. Without the correct authorisation, this is ridiculously unprofessional. So he goes down to the morgue in his hospital, the hospital that he works at, and he takes this gland from a corpse. His colleague catches him and sort of brushes it off and is like, "Oh, be careful, John." And yeah, he takes it home, he operates on his wife, it seems to work, everything's fine and dandy again. But then her face starts to deteriorate again. And of course she's like, right, well, you need another one of these glands because this is not happening to me again. And of course he resorts to murder. That is problematic enough. But the reason that this film is so difficult to watch, difficult to imagine such a lovely bloke as Cushing being involved in, is because first of all, he targets prostitutes. There is, I'm pretty sure there's a discussion throughout the film that, or at least the implication that because these women are prostitutes, nobody's going to miss them. And of course, that maintains the idea that prostitution is always a choice. That these women are... Sorry, I'm quite tired, so I'm yawning a bit. That these women are beyond kind of... I don't want to use the word redemption, but I mean socially. Unfortunately, that stigma does still exist. And yeah, so that's uncomfortable. But it's the fact that the murders... I mean, I believe I watched a slightly cut version because apparently the European, that is non-English / American releases, there was a version produced with nude actresses, which is an awful lot more gory and sexualized than the cut that most people kind of in the States and Britain would have seen and that I've seen bits of. But even then, the murder scenes are quite bloody, very uncomfortable to watch because the angle that's used and the music and just the speed at which everything happens, and it's awful. I don't really know what I would call it. I mean, I suppose it's a slasher, but I have a little bit of a love-hate relationship with slashers. I've seen 2 of the original Nightmare on Elm Street films. I've seen the original Halloween, and I do like them. But again, I think there is something, I don't know, I just think some slashers are very sort of gratuitous, in films that are just splashing like violence all over for the sake of it, particularly with a sexualized element. I'm not keen on. And I know that I'm not alone in that. And yeah, I'm not here to pass judgment on those that do like those kind of films. It's just really not my cup of tea, and it definitely wasn't Cushing's cup of tea either. He didn't do slashers, first of all, and he certainly didn't do sexy slashers. And you know, he just continues to murder these women. There's one awful scene where like he chops a woman's head off and is trying to like shove everything under a seat, and it's just bad. Like the filming, the direction, I don't like it. Like I'm not the thing is as I said, Cushing is utterly believable in it, which is disturbing. There's a scene at the end where somebody discovers a head in the fridge and they're accosted by these group of gangs. Like everything just spirals out of control, and then there's a laser that goes haywire, and then in the end it's all a dream. It just like, it is bad on so many levels. But also I think the reason why, as I said, it's difficult to talk about and to think about was because Cushing only did this film for the sake of his wife. For those of you that don't know, he lost his wife to emphysema in 1971. And prior to that, he was getting as much work as he could, trying to afford her medical bills, because she was the love of his life. They didn't have any children. As far as I'm aware, they didn't have any pets. She was the most important person in his life. And I think I've also discussed the fact that 1972, so the year after, saw so many films released starring Cushing because he just filled that gap with work. His 2 passions in his life were his wife Helen and his work. And it is, as I've been saying throughout this, he does very well in the part, but it is a bad film, and it's shameful, frankly. You definitely feel that the fictional like prostitutes in the film are not the only people being exploited by this. Would I recommend this film in case it's not already pretty obvious? No, I absolutely wouldn't. I watched bits of it only so that I could do this video because I don't want to. I do stand by the fact that Cushing never gave a bad performance, but he was in some interesting films. I have said that a couple of times, I know, but I am gonna, even though I stand by that, even though for the most part I'm gonna be singing his praises until I die, I don't want to kind of give the impression that I think that he was basically a god. Nobody's perfect, you know, and I think it's important to be honest. Not all of his films I like. I don't own all of his films, and that's fine. I like him. There are some films that are interesting. But yes, thank you so much for watching this video, as always. And if this is your first video, hi, welcome. Thank you so much for sticking around. Yes. Planned, like, don't tend to script these. People who watch my videos already will know that, but also, yes, if you're new to my channel, I don't tend to script these, but I think we're just coming up to half an hour now, which is good because last time I spoke for 40 minutes, and the time before that, or possibly the time before that, I spoke for 40 minutes, over 40 minutes, and then my phone couldn't handle it. So this is good. I didn't think I had this much to say, but yes, it bothers me. As I said, I'm not quite sure what I'm going to be doing next week, but it will be Cushing based, sticking with my new sort of video model, like schedule or lack of. And yes, do not check out Corruption unless you want to be as irritated as I am. Thank you so much for watching, as I said, and if you have any recommendations for films that you would like me to watch, review, talk about in any shape or form, or indeed, especially if you have any suggestions for any more questionable Cushings that I could look at in the future, I would really be very grateful. Thank you so much for watching, and take care, all of you. Bye!